Hi class, it's Mrs. Fickus, and I'm going to be doing some more work on my portrait of my Nana. I had to wait a little while to get some more detailed brushes delivered, so here they are. All kinds of fun. I'm really enjoying them. So I'm going to be working on the details, trying to get the wrinkles right, trying to get the skin texture right, trying to get the hair right. So I'm going to get started. Okay, so I've got a lot of Nana blocked in now. I've got some of the major chunks on her hair to get the direction and the movement. I've got this eye and this lens on her glasses pretty much done. I'm currently working on this side to try and get this side a little bit more developed. I was working on this eye, trying to get it going, and so I'm going to be working on the eye, the lens on the glasses, and then kind of bring myself down. I put a first coat of color on the teeth, and then I'll kind of finalize some of my edges on this. You want to have a good combination of lost and found edges, which can also be translated into soft and hard edges. So a soft edge would be this edge right here, where the color change itself is the edge, but there's not a line there. It's the color changes that are the edge. But a hard edge would be this right here on the rim of the glasses, where you actually have a delineated line that is drawn. This is kind of more of a softer edge, kind of in between. So I've been trying to define the glasses without them looking too outlined. So currently I just need to work some more on the detail of her eye, kind of work on the cheek right here. It does come up a little higher than the other side on her face, so I'm going to be working on that. I can let you see my image. There's my image. So I need to just kind of work on getting this part of her face right here. You can see how this one kind of goes more downward and this one kind of comes up a little bit. So I want there to be a symmetry to her face, but in actuality our faces really aren't very symmetrical. So I'm going to be working on that. I'm going to be working on the nose to kind of raise the bridge a little bit, make it seem like I think it's mostly on the tip of the nose and the bridge. Get this right here right. I think I need to kind of round her chin off just a little bit and work on, I've got the overall shape and kind of fluffiness of the hair. I think I need to come out a little bit wider on the sides though at that time with the way the haircut is. So that's what I'm going to be working on. Okay, I'm gonna open my oil a bit. I haven't been using very much oil. I'm not using any quick dry medium at all. Right now I've got a #1 liner brush and a 1/4 inch oval mop brush. This is one of the ones that I ordered, and I am just absolutely loving it for its blendability. It's got really nice blending qualities to it that I'm really enjoying. Most of my brushes are really big brushes, so these are something I'm really enjoying. So I think her cheeks are fairly pink. I think I'm going to work down into here and kind of lighten this area up a bit. I'm mixing a little bit of my Naples yellow, a smidge of white, trying to go really easy on my white, and this part of her skin tone is a little bit more orange. Don't want to eat out too much of the shadow, but it comes down right here like that, and then her jawline needs to come out just a teeny bit. I'm getting just a dab of oil. I don't want to overdo it, but I also don't want to use too much thinner, paint thinner, because I could actually end up kind of taking off the layers below that I do want to keep. And there's a little bit, and I add a little bit of a darker value to that, to what I already had on my brush. And then we do kind of lose her jawline just a little bit into the shadow. So I'm grabbing a little bit of my Terra Rosa Red, mixing it with a little bit of burnt umber, like that. And then what I'll do is I will take, I've got a little bit of thinner right here in a little cup attached to my easel, and I've cleaned off my brush. Then I'm gonna use the favorite part of this mop brush to kind of feather those edges and lose them a little bit. I'm going to grab a little bit more of my Terra Rosa Red and pull that shadow down just a little bit, blending my edges. Don't want to be too harsh over here in this area, even though she does have some areas where you've got some dimples right here from smiling. I do want to put a little bit of shadow on that because it is kind of a deep dimple. That's where it's nice too, because I can take this little mop brush and just get the tip on it with a darker color and just tap it in so it's not a hard edge. It doesn't, you know, doesn't make her look like the Joker. And I'm going to do the same kind of tapping to this area right there, and then I can start adding some darker values. I noticed in my reference that there's a little bit of an almost dark triangular shadow right here. It comes down, and then right next to it, there goes my AC unit, right next to it is a little bit of that lighter value that kind of comes in right here. Another thing that by kind of tapping in my color changes with the mop brush, it helps kind of lend that texture to a skin that older skin has. Younger skin is very smooth. Older skin has a little bit more of a texture to it. So this will allow me to blend it using a little tap that will allow for the skin texture to have a little bit more age to it than it normally would. You know, a little less, if anybody can remember from 80s and 90s, the whole glamour shots thing, where, well, you can hear another ambulance going by. We live only 2 miles from the county ambulance station, so we live just a couple of miles away, so a lot of times we hear them go out. Otherwise, other than the occasional thing like that. Our little place is pretty quiet. Of course, we do get quite a bit of road noise, and whenever I hear it on my videos, it always surprises me, because after all these years, I've been able just to kind of tune it out. I don't really notice the road noise at all. So when I hear it in my videos, it sounds kind of odd, because I just have gotten to the point where I don't notice it anymore. There we go. Coming along. I'm gonna go down here, and it's okay that I still have some of that darker color from up here on my brush. That will kind of reduce the brightness a bit right there. And now I'm going to work on some textural things. I'm going to add a little bit more of my Terra Rosa red. Just kind of tap in to break up the flatness of that color right there. Because as it ages, skin, you know, it loses that firmness that creates those really soft curves, and you end up with a lot of those soft curves being in other areas. So that's what I'm trying to show. I'm going to put a little dark tap right there, and then there's some bit of a shadow right here. I'm going to tap up a bit. Part of the difficulty is she was standing right in front of a really bright winter scene outside of a window. This picture is from her 90th birthday, and she is 95 now. She pretty much still looks almost exactly the same. I think the only difference you might find on any given day is whether or not she's had her hair cut. She's kind of had the same hairstyle for most of my memory, and I'm not super young, so this will be a pretty accurate rendition of how she looks now, even though it's from a, well, she's not 95 yet. She'll be 95 later this year, but it'll still be accurate enough because she really hasn't changed that much, my Nana. She has Alzheimer's, forgets conversations as soon as she's had them and that sort of thing. I don't think the visitor restrictions during the whole COVID thing have really helped with that. I think that without the reinforcement of routine visits, it's gotten a little bit harder for her to remember things. Okay, I'm going to tap in a little bit of a textural shadow right here. I barely have any paint on my brush, and it's going to be very subtle. This creates an optical mixing effect to where the viewer perceives a shadow, even though the shadow is just a little bit of a tapped in, slightly darker pattern. It's kind of how old TVs used to work. TVs back in the day were just, you know, you guys are familiar with pixels. They're just all these little dots, and everything was kind of CYMK, which is cyan, which is a type of blue, yellow, magenta, which is kind of a pinky red, and black. And the printers worked that way too. Printers now, they still do that. They just lay on the colors in layers. Used to be dots. It's looking pretty good right there. I think she's got a little bit more of the dark shadow right there where her lip is. Okay, we are going to pause for a sec. I'm going to clean some stuff. All right, I've gotten some more done. I'm working on getting some of the values around the hairline, taking care of these fine little, you know, what you would call baby hairs that kind of are on the edge. Some of this I'll have to let dry before I can put any more details on the hair. I really don't want to do it a la prima, which means in one sitting, wet on wet. So I really kind of want to be able to let it dry and do a little bit of blending and things like that. Because some of this white is still very, very wet. I'm putting some low lights in that I'll paint individual white hairs on top of later. Whenever you do hair, you don't want to think of hair in individual hairs. If you do that, then you end up with something that looks kind of like Raggedy Ann, like yarn doll hair. And so you really want to avoid that whenever you're trying to work on hair. You want to actually think of it in swoopy pieces. The overall shape of the hair, think of the little Lego people that you have the hair that you just lock right onto their heads. That's how you want to start, and then you start breaking it up into chunks or swirls. So if you look at my image right here, so here is one chunk or swirl that kind of like looks like a swish, and then here's a piece, and then here is a loop right here, and this hole right here that's darker would be another shape. So you break it down into almost things that look like swirls and Nike swishes, and as you go through, then once you get those large pieces blocked in, then you can go through and kind of start adding highlights and shadows that will create the bases. Now this has gotten a little pink right here because I was doing some blending to create shadows, so I'm going to have to let that dry before I can put any darker browns on top, because it's got kind of a pinkish look to it right now because of all this white that's up here. The best way to make white show up most of the time is to apply it thicker than your other colors, because it's going to have to compete. So instead of continually putting on these really thick pieces of color, I'm going to go ahead and let this layer where I've blocked in all my individual swirls and pieces and directional changes, I'm going to let that dry, and then I will go through and a piece at a time, you know, in sections about this big, I'll examine what direction is everything going and things like that. Hair is one of those things where you don't have to include every hair for the viewer to understand that there's a lot of hair there. If you put too much, then it's just too many little strings that they have to look at that they really can't see anything else. So I'm going to take another little bit to work on her teeth. Teeth are another thing. You got to be really careful to pay attention to the size and direction of your model's teeth. You also want to look at the negative spaces. This looks really orange on camera, but it's not that orange. See this negative space right here where the gap between the teeth and the lip, and how wide this area right here is? Those are the things that you want to pay attention to. These shapes, not creating little like tombstone looking teeth. Then whenever you fill the teeth in, don't start with white. Most of us do not have super white teeth. White is not our natural state. People smoke, people drink coffee, people do all these things that create a patina to their teeth. Also, your lips hang over your teeth. Your teeth are inside your mouth and they're always constantly under shadow. And the light coming up into your mouth is bouncing off the color of your lips. So your teeth will actually have kind of sometimes a yellowish gray, a pinkish gray, or a overall kind of a color that is not white on them. And if you do it just solid white, then it'll look so flat and stand out so much, it will distract from all the hard work you've done so far. So you definitely want to avoid that, and you definitely want to look at things like that as ways that you can kind of figure out and learn a little bit more about, you know, how things are really constructed compared to how you remember them being constructed. You're a little kid, you look at, oh, teeth are white. And so look at your own teeth as kind of an experiment to see what color variations are there within your teeth and how much of a shadow goes on your teeth when you smile. Sometimes you'll see a little bit of gum right there, and it kind of comes in between the teeth. People have crooked teeth, people have chips in their teeth. So this is actually still pretty bright. I'm still going to tone this down a little bit, and then I'll add little highlights in where it's a little bit whiter. It won't be white, it will only look white compared to all the colors around it. The colors around things affect the brightness or dullness of the color. So, like for example, you know, this paper stump is fairly white. Look at the teeth, you know, until I put this up here, the teeth looked actually pretty white. But I put this paper stump right here, and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, they're not. So, and the same thing can be said for, you know, my image, which now that I've blown it up, it has kind of a granular look to it. But see how that's not white. Even her hair is not as white as the background. So, which is kind of hard to see right there. So, those are all things to think about. If you think it's looks too dark, take something that is white. Usually I use a square of paper. I don't have any scrap paper close by, and I'm sitting down and my tray is in my lap. But most of the time, if you take a white piece of paper and you put it up against the thing that is white, you'll like, oh, I see. You could do that to your own teeth. You could put a piece of white paper kind of up under your teeth so your teeth are overhanging it, so you can see the whole idea of the fact that your teeth really aren't white. So here's Nana so far, and we're gonna take a break and let some stuff dry, and we'll see you guys later.